Welcome to the Tech2 podcast, where we talk about science, technology, gaming, automotive, vacuum cleaners, shoes,
And Rajouri
all
Garden.
sorts of, and Rajouri Garden, where Ishaan Bharadwaj, our guest for today, is from. Ishaan, welcome and thank you for talking to us today. And before we go into the Bakchodi part of this podcast, which is going to be most of it, we should tell the audience that we are talking today about the Citroen Aircross, the new SUV that has been launched a few days ago. Ishaan, thank you for joining us, and tell our audience what you do and what your website is.
So I run this website called The Race Monkey. Started off 3 years ago as a platform to create blogs and content around cars that are more realistic and more research driven. My background is mechanical engineering and motorsports, and I've been working in the industry quite deeply as well. So I've been there for the last 10 years. So I'm just amalgamating my experience all together and bringing it up on my platform. And that's the best photo bomb I've ever seen.
This was bound to happen. This was, it is insurmountable for me. These cats.
That's a Jaguar passing you.
That was a Jaguar. But we're talking about the Citroen. And the reason we're talking about it is because, first of all, there's some background to this. Of course, that Citroen has been a long time coming. They've been delayed. They've delayed their entry into the Indian market due to the global pandemic since last year. They were supposed to be here last year. They couldn't make it. They even took a bunch of us journalists to Paris to give us the whole Citroen vibe. We went to the museum. We learned about their history. We saw the kind of showrooms that they're going to be putting up. All that happened. There was supposed to be a press drive. It didn't happen. Pandemic situation. And then ultimately earlier this year, was it earlier this year? It was, right?
It was earlier this year.
Yeah, earlier this year, we finally got to drive the car. Then there's been a significant amount of time in between, and we finally got the pricing of the vehicle. Now, the Citroen Aircross is a 5-seater SUV. It's mid to large size. It's not small. And it costs 30 lakh rupees. I mean, it starts at 29 something, goes up to 31 something, ex-showroom. This is something that we all knew already. This was rumored. It was kind of tacitly sort of accepted. And it seems to be true. And the initial reaction across whatever I've heard is like, oh no, arre re, ye kya kar diya? That's basically it. Including my own, to be very honest. And I was interested in your perspective because you brought to the table, like you said, some research on the topic. So, background: have you driven the car?
I have driven the car on the first drive.
Okay, good. As have I, and I had some thoughts. I have a review up on tech2.com. And I thought it was a good car. I think it's a benchmark drivetrain. That is the engine and the transmission. It's really good to drive. But in terms of comfort, I don't know. Perhaps I was a little bit sort of underwhelmed by the amount of hype that was built around the whole comfort aspect of it. And then what was delivered finally perhaps was not so game-changing for me. So I had a measured response in my review. But generally, people seem to be of the opinion that this pricing is too high. What are your thoughts?
So if we compare it to the international markets where this car is sold, I mean, comparing it to its own homeland, France, the top of the line Shine variant, which is priced in India at 31.9 lakh rupees, is priced at 34 lakh rupees when converted into the Indian currency. So the price difference is there. Plus, the perception of Citroen as a brand in India has been of something which is similar to Hyundai, or let's say what Jeep is giving with the Compass. So rather than keeping it on the higher end, people have made a perception, all thanks to our friends in the media and the entire reviews and the hype around it, that this car would be on the much lower side. So that uh, uh, the aspiration of having a car around 20 22 lakh rupees had built up, and isliye there are a lot of people who have gotten disappointed. Now, if you look at the engineering side and how Citroen has packaged the car and the entire experience, is what makes this price, according to me, very much justified. Now, I'll take a sample case of Toyota. Now, Toyota, when it started off building the Innovas, it used to cost from 9 lakh rupees to at most 13, 14 lakh rupees. In today's time, the car starts at 19 lakhs. And we're not talking about 20 years ago. We're talking about somewhere 9 years ago or 8 years ago, max to max 10 years ago. And that car was at that price. Today, the Innova costs at 18.5, 19 lakh rupees to start off with the basic variant. And the top of the line one is 27, 28 lakh rupees. That car is not high on equipment. The quality of plastics and other materials inside is not regarded as the luxurious segment, or the fit and finish. Everything is as per the standard of how Toyota cars have been all throughout. There's nothing too ostentatious about the product's packaging. The engines are lackluster in terms of its power. The standard equipment that the car gives, that we would accept as consumers at that price point, it's not there. It's not even 50% there. Like even the current, it's now launched the car with the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto touchscreen, but cars of its competition have had it for the last 5 years or 4 years. So people still buy it. There is a huge consumer demand. It's similar for the Fortuner as well. Like if you compare cars of its competition, like the Endeavour, there is the Gloucester, the MG, and the Alturas, they do provide a massive amount of luxuries and gadgetry and aspirational value rather than what the Fortuner gives. But where Fortuner excels is in packaging, is in its reliability, is in its customer experience. That is seamless. Luxury has to be a seamless experience is when it can be regarded as one. In India now, what we perceive is if there is a brand that's launching a product, it has to start off with a very low price point and then it will flourish. Now, we don't just have to look at how the product is placed and how the product is packaged, but we also have to see how the entire experience has been put together. From the communication to the dealership, the experience and the locations of the dealership, how your entire experience is when you're purchasing the car, how seamless it is, and what all has gone into the car in terms of its engineering, in terms of its packaging, the service backup. If the brand takes a hold of making that experience seamless, I don't mind paying that amount as a consumer. All of these people who are going gaga on the internet have, I've been on the internet since last night on different Instagram pages, and I have seen comments of people on the posts where the launch photographs have been placed in the post. And everyone's going, oh, it's a failure. Oh, it's overpriced. And most of them, if you go to their profiles, are 14, 15, 17-year-old boys. So
yeah, well, that is the magic of the democratic internet. So we're going to have that, but hopefully we're not those 14, 15, 17-year-old boys. We have driver's licenses.
Exactly.
Okay, so I get what you're saying. It's more than the product, but at this point, let's face it, because of the pandemic, because of the limited travel that we have, I haven't experienced the showroom in India. So I can't really add that to my experience. I did experience the flagship showroom in Paris, and it was underwhelming. Frankly, an average Mahindra showroom was more impressive than the showroom I went to in Paris. But that being said, I understand that you've had a better experience with the staff as well as the showroom quality in India. So I get that. But look, the bottom line is that जो दिखता है वो बिकता है, पब्लिक ये देखेगा और देखेगा कि भाई 30 लाख रुपए का है, तो इट्स गोइंग टू हैव some concerns. And I think also I get what you're saying about quality and the overall experience, but you've also got to consider what the peers are now. More recently, Citroen and FCA Group have merged and they've formed a company called Stellantis. Jeep is one of the FCA Group's products. In fact, their only product now in India. So the Jeep Compass is effectively competition for the Citroen Aircross C5. And here's the thing: I went to the press drive of the C5 Aircross in the latest Compass. I drove to the press drive in the Compass, got into the Aircross, drove it around, took the photographs, all that, and came back, got back into the Compass and drove home. So I have a very direct A/B comparison. And purely talking about the product, there was a lot more to talk about in the Compass. And I don't want to make this purely a comparo kind of situation. We're talking more about whether this outrage over the price is justified. And I think at least some part of this outrage is justified, because in the Compass I had a better interior, much more luxurious feeling, leatherette, whatever, um, wireless charging, wireless Apple CarPlay.
I really like the fabric seats on the lower variant of the Compass. They look really nice.
Yeah. So there was a lot to talk about, and there's still another cat to be gotten rid of. There we
How many
go.
cats do you have? मेरे को एक दो दे दो यार.
हाँ, ले लो भाई, 6 है अभी. Just need to, yeah, okay. Anyway, we're back. So we're talking about the Aircross. So it was very stark, the amount of difference there was in the new Compass and the Aircross in terms of equipment. And frankly, I get what you're saying. We were talking about this last night. I get what you're saying about the Citroen brand being a little bit premium and all that. But you can't just put a sticker on something because it's a premium brand and call it premium. It's like Ferrari headphones. They are not really great headphones, but they have Ferrari branding on them. Doesn't mean they're great headphones. Same thing with this car. I mean, it's a great car. I love the benchmark drivetrain. I like the suspension, and they keep talking about the suspension, right? They talk about the whole comfort things, the comfort aspect, comfort class, hashtags all over the place. But the Jeep had similar suspension. The Jeep also, I can't remember the engineering explanation, but the Jeep also has something special in its suspension. And it was as, if not more comfortable to and fro on the same route for me as the Aircross. So that, poses a question in my mind. We're talking about admittedly a smaller SUV, but one that feels more premium, has more equipment, rides the same, is available in 4x4 and costs less.
That's actually quite debatable. And I get your point, and it's actually agreeable to as well. But at the same time, we cannot deny the fact that the size of the car as compared to the Compass, on the inside especially. I mean, if I were to seat 5 people in comfort, I would not be able to do that in a Compass on a longer trip, especially in the back seat. And the entire perception that Jeep has created for itself as of now, I mean, if you were to go and buy a car that was around 60 lakh rupees, I'm just talking about the brand value right now and how it has been perceived in India now. If you were to be going to the market and buying a car for around 60, 70 lakh rupees, and you had the Jeep Grand Cherokee in your options, would you consider it over a Volvo XC90 or a Mercedes GLE?
It depends on my experience of the car. It really does. Look, let's face it. A nicely spec'd Hyundai will probably give you more equipment than a low spec Mercedes. But
That's
guess
right.
which one costs more?
The Mercedes, obviously.
Right. So I'm not going to be one to give cars a pass just because they've got a certain badge on it. So if a car does not have the premium vibe and the premium experience, I'm not saying the Citroen doesn't, but if it doesn't have enough of it based on the hype that's built up, I mean, we need to talk about it. So for example, you said premium vehicle, room for five, long distances, etc., etc. Let's just talk about the interior. Let's talk about the leatherette quality, for example. It's all over the dashboard. In both cars, it's on the seats.
That's
The
right.
Jeep has more of it, and the leatherette, even if it is, I don't know if it is, even if it is a cheaper quality, it feels way more premium. It's
Feel
softer,
happy.
it's nicer to touch. Look
That's
at the
right.
entire dashboard, it's covered, whereas in the Citroen, it's only part of it. There's still hard plastics peeking out. It's an interesting aesthetic choice, the gray and the light tones. It's an interesting aesthetic choice. The seats are interesting. The second row with all those three units that can slide individually, all very good, all very practical, but it's different. It's not superior, right? That was my concern, that there's already a viable competition, in terms of all the other guys that are around. So you mentioned the Tucson, so did Aircross. They say they're not benchmarking against that, but they do consider the Tucson to be competition. That is there. They don't actually consider the Jeep Compass to be competition, but you get a slightly smaller car, to my mind, with better stuff. How do you give Citroen a pass for example, the infotainment system that they're providing, which looks like it's at least 5 years old?
Yeah. I mean, that's a small screen, to be honest. And uske upar, the touchpads that it has, it's not exactly as ergonomic as it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And that are one. I mean, those are few points, but then see, we're only considering only and only the product side of it. Ki
Right now.
how and there is a 19-20 ka difference in how these products match up to each other when we're talking about the quality. If we do not consider the pricing, if we look at the Compass and the C5, the qualitative analysis makes it in a ratio of 19-20. But when you delve deeper into the entire experience, so I was reading one of their research papers that they have made it public, and they had shared it in one of our press releases as well. It's called the Comfortology, where they've done all the analysis of different things and how
Yes.
what all people have been through, what sort of experience do people want, and they've done the entire poll on different things. And then they say, see, there is one that everyone wants convenience. Everyone wants effortless and seamless experience in their automobiles as well. Be it purchasing it, be it servicing it, be it driving it around. So now I'm coming to the point of my experience at the dealership and what all I was communicating. Now they say, if you book the car online, like you're sitting at your home at some corner of the country, so they say that they can deliver cars to at least 50 cities as of now, if you book it online, and everything is very personalized. So they give you a link, you do your bookings, you do your payments, you book your car, you don't have to go to the dealership, and the car gets delivered to your doorstep. That's one of the seamless experiences that the other brands of its competition are not giving. As a consumer, it's more convenient for me to have that. Second, it's the service as well. Agar meri gaadi kahin pe, like what I was discussing with you about Volvo yesterday, if the car breaks down anywhere in this country, it's not that there's going to be a roadside assistance truck which would come to me and just take me to a nearby workshop and just keep it me there, and wahan se main truck mein chada ke I bring it back to the workshop. Citroen as a brand would make sure that it sends a technical guy over to you, just like Volvo, and get your car fixed over there if it can be fixed or serviced at that point. So there are these little seamless experiences that makes up to make this car valued as such. अब I know as an Indian consumer, मेरे को इन चीजों से फर्क नहीं पड़ता. 99% of the people are like, मेरे को गाड़ी चाहिए, मेरे को बड़ी स्क्रीन चाहिए, मेरे को गाड़ी भागे, स्किड मारे, मेरे को एवरेज दे दो तुम 20-21 की, मैं अगर लद्दाख लेके जाऊं, मेरी गाड़ी नदी को पार कर देनी चाहिए, वो सब चीजें चाहिए मेरे को. So उसका भी ख्याल रखते हुए, Citroen is saying we have engineered our car properly. If you go through their notes, I'm not saying they have the best suspension in the world, but considering when they are, and they've actually overhyped the entire comfort thing. It's not bad, but it's not the best. But then when we say, when they're benchmarking comfort, we start benchmarking it against cars which are much higher in value. Let's say a Mercedes or a BMW. We think it should match up to that level of comfort. We want that sort of nice, comfortable, cushy, cloud-like ride.
But it doesn't. It doesn't match up.
It's
खराब
not,
नहीं है, बिल्कुल नहीं.
You think so?
It's absolutely not bad. It's a very nice plush suspension. But I'm just saying, I don't think you can benchmark it with
Obviously.
a couple of segments up. You know, it's not like, it's not, and they haven't claimed it, to be fair. But you know, the impression that was made is that, boss, this is the ultimate, and it's going to match up to something.
But if I compare to let's say a BMW X1 or even a Toyota Fortuner,
okay,
even a Volkswagen Tiguan or a Hyundai Tucson, it does come up as a superior choice in terms of comfort than these cars on a longer distance. I mean, I've driven the car for 250 kilometers on my drive. That was my experience. I had the Tiguan All Space back in December when I took it up to Narkanda when I was with the Evo team. And we drove that car for around 1100 kilometers. So when I compare it back to back, and usse kuch dino baad hi, we had this C5 Citroen ka drive when I came back. And when I had that experience back to back, there was quite a lot of difference. Although the Tiguan All Space and the Tiguan itself is a bit more expensive than this car. So, uska suspension thoda sa stiff, it's more sporty. But then if you look at a long distance, comfortable cruiser for 5 people, you know, actually makes quite a lot of sense. And if they do work upon their reliability factor and their seamless experience factor in the next 1 year and try to match up to the benchmark in the industry, which is Toyota, which is going to be very hard, then I think the price is going to be pretty much justified to what they are putting it up.
So I think the one critical difference here is that Toyota doesn't need to sell their brand to people. Toyota is Toyota for a reason. They've been around for a long time. They're known to be bulletproof, reasonable to maintain, all that stuff. Those are brand values that have already been communicated to the Indian public. I do feel like there is a gap here as far as Citroen is concerned in terms of communication. Are they putting out the right message to the Janta? Are they telling them the right things at the right time? I feel like there's been kind of a missed opportunity there. They could have created a little bit more of an impression in our minds to understand this. I get it, because I had the good fortune to actually go to their Paris museum and see the kind of legacy and innovation.
Rian was there with you as well.
That they've actually been, responsible as a car company, because they are one of the early guys in automobiles. But the Indian consumer doesn't know that. The Indian consumer has very little connection to Citroen and their long storied legacy of comfort, and that whole story about the 2CV and how it was designed to take a bunch of eggs across a field without breaking any of the eggs. Those are stories that are legendary, but you need to communicate these things. Otherwise, how is कैसे लेगा कोई 30 लाख रुपए का?
The Indian consumer in terms of how the market functions there is very, very difficult. अब हम लोग यहाँ पर, we guys complain a lot. Why don't we get the best of the cars that are sold in the world? This is one of the biggest reasons. We do not appreciate and don't understand why and how this car is built to this price. what's going on the inside. All we want is, so the entire janta, 90% of it, and it's a big number to speak about, is stuck to three things: hot design, big sunroof, loud music system. You have 7 airbags in a car that can save your knees in terms of a crash. Nahi farak padta. I had the opportunity to live with a Toyota Yaris for 1.5 months back in November, December last year. And I had a lot of questions in my mind. I could not understand why Toyota was playing it over here with this car, although there are cars like the Verna, there's the Honda City. Why do they have the Yaris? And most of the people I know who own the Yaris, the smarter pack, they vouched for it. And I took the car. We went to Lahore Valley during the winter months. After Atal Tunnel, we drove another 60, 70 kilometers down to this place called Tandi, which is the last fuel pump up before Leh. And the experience was mind-blowing. But the way that entire car is engineered to drive, the dynamics, the experience inside the cabin, it has that acoustic glass. So when we were doing long distance journey, and one of my friends, Shivam Chaudhary, who owns Hoonigan Motorsports, he's a big time superbike dealer in Delhi.
I know Shivam, yeah.
Yeah, so he was accompanying me on this trip. And the moment I got the car in front of him, he was like, dude, isme nahi jana. Get a nicer car. I would not do a trip in this. And I was like, chal. It's going to be an adventure, but let's go. And I can take this down in writing from him. That guy went to the showroom the next day we came back to Delhi to figure out a Yaris for himself. So that car has blown us away. And then I felt sad that such wonderful cars, okay, it does not look very handsome. The face of it, I start puking off. But as a package, as a reliable, strong, well-engineered car, it outdoes everything else in its segment. So that is what I'm wanting to convey this key. When we say, oh, why don't we get the A45 AMG in the country? Why don't we get the Volkswagen Golf? Why don't we get, the creme la creme of all the cars that are sold in Europe and countries like Nepal? We have the Mazda over there. And, there are McLarens in Singapore and Malaysia. And Malaysia is not a bigger economy than our country. But then it's how the consumers accept those products and they receive it properly. Yahan par we are earmarked and stuck to certain things, which has scrapped out the entire industry. And we are ending up buying all these trashes that the brands are throwing at us. So if a brand is coming up with an intention, okay, let's make a difference. We're going to be a little expensive, but we want to give a good experience to the consumer. And when it does that, it brings out, it is going to be a bit expensive. You don't go to Gucci and say, oh, I want a belt. This belt is not better than my Tommy Hilfiger belt. This is not worth not more than $1,200. Why are you selling it off for 20,000? It is the experience and it is the craftsmanship and the way that entire seamlessness is there when you buy that Gucci belt. That valuable feeling that one gets when they buy a Gucci belt. So if Citroen wants to create a brand value into this country as a premium, seamless brand, which ends up giving you a better experience than its competition, it shouldn't be that hard to accept it. It is going to be very hard for us Indian consumers, and it is going to take a lot of time. The brand is going to take a lot of slack because of this. But I'm sure if people start realizing, it would be received well.
Okay, so that still puts the ball back into Citroen's court in terms of conveying these actual values to the consumer. I get what you're saying about the product itself and the fact that perhaps it is a well-engineered and higher spec product overall than some of the competition. But I ultimately people are going to vote with their wallets, so remains to be seen whether but the Citroen is able to actually get that message out there. I like what I'm hearing from you about their well-trained staff. I like what I'm hearing about their assistance packages and things like that. But yeah, as a product, so I think that stumbling block of price has made itself felt, and we'll see how it goes. But I'm curious, are you going to be getting the car for a longer drive?
I am getting a car for the longer drive probably by the end of this month. I am
Okay.
taking it down to Hyderabad and back.
Okay.
Uh, so this is more of a comfortable biryani drive where I go there. The story is, I'll just release the story of what I'm looking at. Go down, eat some nice biryani, get some pearl artifacts for my mom, and come
Okay.
back without breaking anything or getting a tummy ache.
Well, that's that's a low bar to set, but then it is the pandemic. So yeah, good luck with that. And I think we should circle back and see what your experiences are with the long drive,
Yeah.
because like you said, with the comfortable five-seater vibe and the whole focus on comfort, I think that will be the proof of the
See,
pudding will be
it's a
there.
different approach that's been taken. They have taken an approach which has not been taken before. Anything new that comes into any market, especially in India, takes a lot of slack, takes a lot of beating in the first few days. Once it starts moving up, then there's no going back. But what Citroen as a brand has to make sure that it does not repeat a history of what Volvo did. So up till Sudeep Narayan, who was now left Volvo, the marketing and promotion of the brand was extremely aggressive. And I've seen a lot of these consumer initiatives, drives, get-togethers, even online events that used to happen, which the other brands do. And there was quite a lot of visibility, a lot of awareness about the product. That's why they were able to sell a huge number of XC90s and S90s amongst the creme la creme of the consumers. I know very little people who are less aware about Volvo as a brand and the the in-depth details about the product who own the S90s and the XC90s. A lot of, I mean, in my family, my friends who own Volvos, if you talk about them of why did you choose a Volvo, they'll give you a proper detail. And that is what is impressive, that the awareness, when it all started it off, this new phase of Volvo, it was very strong. Now, the current crop of management at Volvo, I mean, look at the S60. What advertisements do you get on the social? The
No, fair
new
enough. The bottom
S60.
line is that
Yeah,
there is a lesson to be learned over there
that's correct.
for Citroen also in terms of
Yeah,
communicating, essentially.
that's
So
correct.
yeah. So I think okay. So let's see. Let's circle back when you come back from Hyderabad. Are you going alone or with
This is going to be a
family or
solo,
somebody else?
probably a solo trip, or my cameraman would be going with me. It depends.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. It would have been good if you had more people in the car and you could get a sense of how the back seat is as well. But
Yeah, I did
anyway,
something like this with the Safari. So when the actual drive was happening, I
right.
was absent because of a medical emergency. And Monday, the car got launched. And on Monday itself, a night before on Sunday, I got a call from the corporate communications that they would be sending me a car. I was like, okay, cool. So I'll do the review. I'm sorry I wasn't available, and it's going to be a little late, but let's do it. So rather than sending me one car, they sent me two. And they communicated this at 11 o'clock at night on a text that we're sending you two cars. One's a six-seater, one's a seven-seater. Like, now that's a problem.
Hmm.
How should I, plan this entire thing? And I had the car for 2 days because the car had to go back to Pune on the Wednesday. So I called up all my friends at till 1 o'clock at night, and I asked them, are you guys free on a Monday for a road trip? And I asked 40, 45 people on the internet who were awake and who were online. Out of those 12, including a 2-year-old boy who was son of one of my friends. And we went down to Savai Madhopur, Alwar in the two safaris, and the experience was incredible. So, I mean, something similar is what we can look forward to. I mean, some good adventures. And I'm pretty sure, I mean, considering my brief experience of what I felt about the car, it won't be a bad experience at all on that longer trip.
No, for sure. I think at least the way it was, the way it felt to drive, I was very happy. I would be very pleased to drive this car long distance, and I hope you are too. So we will circle back to that. I think we should probably cut this off. I don't think too many people are interested in listening to several hours of podcast. We're up to 35 minutes. So thanks, Ishan. Thanks for your insight, and I hope you're right. I honestly hope you're right about Citroen, because
Yeah.
again, it's about communication. People need to know that these guys are here to stay. They've invested a lot of money. They're making the cars here. There is localization happening. This is not one of those fancy imported cars that you're going to be left high and dry with in terms of service or parts or whatever.
Correct.
So I think there's work to be done, and I'm glad you've taken a slightly contrarian view about this and shed some light there. So thanks for that, and hopefully we'll catch you on another episode of the podcast.
Super. Thank you for having me here, and look forward to being a part of another incredible podcast with you.
Incredible is pushing it right now. अभी तक मेरा मतलब कि वो I'm still warming up, so we'll see soon.
I'm sending you all the blessings from Rajouri Garden.
Give the vibes.
The vibes.
All right, see you.
Cheers.